Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. If you're watching, this is the first time I've ever had three people on the screen in three different windows, so I hope it doesn't look weird, but welcome back in. Today we're talking about growing steady cash flow and recurring revenue. Kind of seems obvious in business, but most businesses don't leverage this strategy. And of the ones that do, I'm sure a lot of them don't do it right. So we're going to hear from two people today who have learned a lot in their journey of entrepreneurship, and we'll see what we can learn from them. So we got Mike Schmidt, AJ Rivera. Guys, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us, Brandon.
Yeah, super excited to be here.
So we're unlocking steady cash flow. So right off the bat, right? That's business 101, right? Every business needs cash flow. Where did you guys stumble on this very topic and realize that it's important, but not just important, necessary for your success?
Well, I think not having cash is a pretty big warning sign.
I agree. All right, that was perfect.
It's pretty important.
Right here, then. That was
all right,
great.
the end. Thanks everybody for watching. All right. Yeah, starting a business, I got my start 2003. AJ and I met in 2008, but 2003 I started a web and digital marketing. Well, it was just a web design company back then. Let's be real. Like, I was creating websites for local businesses, and it was just a kind of excuse to stay here in Tucson, Arizona. I was dating the girl who'd become my wife. I was playing in a band. All my friends were here, so I was like, well, the prospects for a web designer in 2003, you had to start your own company, basically, right? And so that's what I did. And at that time, just graduating college, my needs for cash were relatively small, right? Especially now that I look at the ones of present day. And so I was able to build a business that, was able to create enough cash coming in to service what I needed, but not really a lot more than that. And despite my lack of business knowledge, I continued to grow that company and kind of get bigger and bigger. And I was kind of living in this situation, which we refer to it now as like the feast or famine business cycle, right? It's periods of time where you have plenty of cash, projects are coming in, you're like high on life, everything's great, followed by periods of time where, because you were so busy delivering the work that you just sold, that you stopped marketing, stopped having stuff come in, and then cash dries up, right? And there's just periods of highs and lows that kind of go back and forth. And I think it's something a lot of businesses can relate to. And honestly, I just kind of assumed that that's the way business works. Like, congratulations, Mike, you have a business. Like, this is the way. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it sucks. So deal with it, right? And it wasn't until I kind of realized, well, actually, many successful businesses don't work that way. They have figured out how to create steady flows of revenue despite, what's happening in the world and what their attention is on. And it turns out there was a way for me to do it too.
Yeah, I really think the idea of having cash flow in a business is super important, but the way that we were going about that for a long time was going out to the world and trying to find large upfront one-time projects, right? We thought that was the key to making sure there was constant cash coming through the door. But the result of that was that money came and went every single month, right? And like, we would start the month at zero or close to zero again. I handled the sales for our agency for a long time. And, my goal and what I was trying to achieve each month was to go find these big whales that I could sell, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. We got to a point where we sold $100,000 website, but only to feel like, gosh, where am I going to find another one of those, right? Like, the real tipping point for us was when I sold a 6-figure website to a casino here in town, and Mike and I are high-fiving, and we're like, great, our cash flow issues are over. We're not going to be worried about making payroll or any expenses. We've got like money in the bank. And only to, have completed that project a few months later and then started feeling like that famine mode come on again, right? We're looking at the bank account. It's like, where did all that money go? And, we went to our bookkeeper and I was scratching our heads and said, what the heck just happened? We got more money in one time than we've ever gotten before. And it's only a few months later and it feels like we're right back to square one. And she ran a report for us that really changed our life and our view of our business forever. It was the top 20 customers for the last 5 years. And I was wholeheartedly expecting Casino del Sol to be number one on that list, but it was actually a local orthodontist who had been paying us $2,000 a month, but for the entire last 5 years, right? And so those were clients that we had built a website for, then moved into digital marketing services that paid on a more recurring basis. But we weren't really putting any emphasis on that, right? We were going after the websites, thinking that's where our money was coming from, when all along we should have been high-fiving those $2,000 contracts. And so once we saw that, it made it super simple for us to like refocus our attention and all of our strategy and all of our prospecting efforts on those clients, because guess what? Those ones were everywhere. There wasn't casinos that were going to give us 6 figures hanging out all over the place, but there was, the orthodontist, the plumber, the lawyer, all these other companies that were in that top 10 that were just willing to pay us smaller amounts of money for a longer period of time. So it took us about a year to build up our recurring revenue to the point where it was paying all of our expenses, all of our payroll, putting some money in our pocket. And that's when things changed forever, because, we could slow down. We could take time off. We didn't have to have these Hail Mary campaigns. We weren't having those sleepless nights. We could work on the things we wanted to work on our business instead of having to constantly try to go out there hunting for these big sales. And so that's the shift that we're talking about when we talk about most businesses get this wrong and go after the one-time projects versus an intense focus on recurring revenue, which is where stability really is.
I love that. I love the analysis. And Mike, you brought up the term feast or famine. I'm so glad you said that. That's kind of what I was getting at, because I don't know what the percentage is of small business owners that fall into that trap. Another way to look at it is living paycheck to paycheck, just hoping you make enough to cover the bills every month. Yeah. I actually, as you were saying that, I had a mentor at one time very early on in my career, and he said one of his exercises was to calculate your break-even point to the day. So figure out how many days it took you every month to cover your monthly expenses. But even that mindset still puts you in that feast or famine, saying, okay, if it takes you 10 days to cover your expenses, the next 20 are, air quotes, profit.
Right.
But then every single month you're on that hamster wheel. And I love how you guys just made that shift of, okay, let's make sure that the credit cards are being billed for what we need on the first day of the month before we even walk into the office.
That's just
I love that mindset. So when you guys were going through this process, I know you said you had digital marketing services for the orthodontist. Did you have to create any new services, or did you just more heavily focus on services you already provided to get this recurring revenue?
It was mostly services that we were already providing, but we were doing it in a more intentional way. So like I mentioned, 2003, it was a web design company, right? And so like the identity of that business was that we were a web design company first. And so every, say when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So every client that walked across our, in our office was a website design client prospect. But was that really true? Like the truth was we were doing digital marketing services, but it oftentimes was after we would help them with a website. And it was like a little bit of a mindset shift to say, well, what are the things that we're doing that are recurring in nature, and how can we sell more of those things intentionally? Now, when we were making that shift, we had to be really careful because, we were used to getting big checks, right? And so we built the whole business around the cash flow of big checks coming in. And so if I go to you and say, hey, it's 20 grand, right? And I get a $20,000 check, that's awesome. But if I say to you, hey, no, it's $2,000 a month. Well, yes, I'm getting paid more if it's a 12-month contract, but like the difference in that one single month was I was getting 20 before, now I'm getting 2, right? And so we had to kind of manage the balance of how we shifted our focus from a business that was heavily dependent on, bigger projects coming through to support itself, to one where we could ramp up enough of the recurring revenue to cover our expenses. And so it was kind of a balancing act, and it wasn't all that crazy. We were just like, hey, this one would be a good one, that will be a seed planted for the future and getting paid every month, and we'll sell that recurring. All right, this one we're going to sell as up front because we want the cash, we need the cash right now. And so that was kind of a game we played, and it took about a year or so And we built more than 100 grand in monthly recurring revenue. We had exceeded our expenses, and we're like, it was awesome. Like that was the moment we're like, okay, we did it. But that was the focus. Once we decided, we're like, we saw that there was all these other businesses that could be paying us monthly. We had to change, in many ways, our identity of who we were. We're no longer a web design company. We were now, a digital marketing company with the focus on helping our clients and customers create more customer activity, because that's what they wanted, right? So that was that identity shift that led to a change in behavior, right? That then over enough period of time actually got us to our goal.
Yeah, I think that the second piece of that is, we went from being kind of like an order taker type company, right? Like we'd build a website for somebody, and then if they asked us for SEO, we'd say, sure, we could do that. If they asked us for help with pay-per-click, sure, we could do that. To a company that said, cool, like how do we go and suggest these items in a strategic way to people? And, for all the people that were our existing clients that maybe were just doing one of our services, how do we get them to add a second service? How do we get them to add a third service? So we ultimately recreated our entire sales proposal process in a way that allowed us to more heavily focus on the recurring revenue services in a way that made clients want to buy more or all of them, right? And so we can get more wallet share from our clients. So that was a big piece of the strategy, is just taking clients that were paying us maybe $600 a month to $2,000 a month, because we were being more intentional with how we were going out there and suggesting to them that we could help them do these things and how it would actually help them.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. Two of the easiest ways to increase your revenue are get more money from existing clients, or sell more services more often to those clients.
Right.
Because they already trust you, right? But I think a lot of entrepreneurs overlook that piece, and we try to create new revenue streams to sell to a different subset of customers, and you start to look like the jack of all trades and the master of none. How did you guys balance that? I knew you were doing a lot of these services, but even as you're approaching your existing clients, how did you portray to them that you actually were knowledgeable and had the expertise in these different array of services? And then the kind of the follow-up question to that too, on a separate note, is you guys are creative, right? You have a creative marketing business. What about the businesses that are maybe it's not so easy and clear to see how you could build a subscription based or consistent revenue stream month over month? I'm thinking of like a deli is a great example. How would that business answer this question too? To say, all right, we need to do more things for the same set of people and still be knowledgeable to our core group of customers.
Yeah, let's answer that second part first. Like, how does the deli go out there and create more revenue on a consistent basis? Like, you're right. There's probably not like the $59 unlimited sandwich club that you join. Like, there's probably some limitations in that respect. But I think the answer that has a lot to do with nurture of the people that are coming into a business, right? So what we've found is, in working with just about every type of business that you can imagine, their attention usually is on kind of two things. One is leads, right? Which is like, top of the funnel, unqualified prospects of people who could buy from them, right? So people are hungry for the deli, right? And then there's sales, right? The actual cash register ringing in the sales process. But what I think most businesses ignore is that like middle piece, right? Which is how you turn a lead into a prospect, right? There's a difference between a lead and a prospect. Lead is top of the funnel, somebody who's in your market, could tangentially be interested in your service. A prospect is someone who's actually in your sales process. And I think that most businesses, when they approach marketing, they'll just go out there and like try and find leads. And like, I don't know if like the listeners here might have experienced this. Have you ever felt to yourself after doing a marketing campaign, you thought, man, those leads sucked. We spent all this money. We didn't get what we wanted. We maybe got a little bit of business, but like it didn't work like I believed it to work. And the truth is, that's like a universal thing. The reason that happens is that I have news. All leads suck. Like almost by definition, the lead sucks because it's cold, right? And it hasn't been warmed up. It's really, when you do marketing, what people are really saying they want is like, I want hot prospects. I want that's why we love word of mouth referrals so much, because it's like, it's a hot lead dropped on your doorstep and all you got to do is not mess it up and you pretty much close the deal. So the question is, how do you take somebody from cold, which is that cold lead, to that warm or hot prospect? And the truth is that you have to have a way of nurturing and engaging those people. And so something really simple that every business on the planet can implement today is start having a conversation with your leads by email, like once per week. Send them an email, not to sell them. Like I know probably most of us are on email lists that like feel like all we get is times where they're just getting promotion. We're getting promoted at all the time. It's always a sale. It's always something going on, right? And the truth is, like, if you could start to build a human to human relationship with the people who were the leads in the past, or your existing customers or past customers, like that's a way that you can create a more steady flow of people or the hot prospects ready to go. If I owned a deli, I tell you right now, I'd step in there, and if it didn't have an email list, I would build one, right? And if it did have one, I would be sending out an email every week at least, just talking about what's happening in the deli, right? And every once in a while, maybe every fourth email, I'd make an offer to say, here's an offer for you guys, right? And it's so easy to do. It's also easy not to do. And so that maybe isn't like contracted recurring revenue, but it's a lever that every business can pull to create more steady conversations. Like people don't know you as well as you think that they do, right? You've got to repeat your stuff over and over again and be in front of people. Otherwise, they're going to forget about you, right? We're going to forget about the deli on the corner because there's another burger restaurant that opened up down the road that they've been really good at being in front of me, but the deli is old news that I don't think about it. And is it really old news, or is it that they stopped telling me about themselves? Oh, we already told everybody about us. They know we're here. We've got a sign. It's a bunch of BS, right? Like be consistent with that again and again and again.
Yeah. And I think the other part to that question is at the time that we were doing this is when, charging monthly for services and software and things was becoming more and more popular. It's like when Dollar Shave Club was born, right? And there was a membership for your razors. And then we saw like Photoshop and Adobe products were no longer like $800, $900 or $1,000. They wanted $100 a month, for the program. QuickBooks did that.
Car washes.
Our car washes did that. Barbers do that, right? So I think there's a lot of industries where they probably assume that they can't do that, and they probably could just do it because it's so popular now. But even for things like, we started even shifting our websites so that they were monthly, and you'd be surprised. Like you'd think, cool, I was going to charge them 10 grand for this website up front, but instead I'm telling them I'm going to charge them $1,000 a month for a 24-month commitment. And you would think there's no way they're going to do that, right? That adds up to 24,000. And they could do 10,000 now. I'll tell you what, there's so many people that would rather give me $1,000 forever than give me $10,000 today. And that's just because they're managing their cash flow too, right? And if you're able to add a couple other things to that, maybe we report on analytics, maybe we give them some maintenance hours, maybe we do a couple enhanced hosting solutions that make them feel like they're getting something. You can make that switch a lot easier than I think you think.
I love it. And I hear that pushback. I'm not in the marketing space, but I hear that from people all the time. My business is too boring, or it's a commodity. I can't do that stuff. Mike, when you said the $59 a month sandwich club, I was like, brilliant. That's exactly why I asked that question. I knew you guys were going to come up with something that is so outside the box, but also like so rational at the same time. Mm-hmm. To where every business owner can probably come up with something that's in their wheelhouse, create a bit of recurring revenue. And who knows? I mean, even if that offsets half of your monthly cost, you still know on the first of every month, your costs are half covered. Who doesn't want that? Mm-hmm. So I love this. I love this mentality. And what I would love to hear from you guys, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, but I love for this podcast to be actionable. The information you guys gave was phenomenal. And I know people can take that and implement things into their business. But if you were to come up with a question, maybe a question for the listeners to think about starting to create recurring cash flow in their business to offset their monthly expenses more and more and more at the start of every month, what would you want them to ask themselves so that they could come up with that answer on their own?
I'd probably start with whatever their core offer is right now. And can you just make that monthly versus however you're charging for it, right? And what would it take, or what would you need to add to it for somebody to feel like they were getting value month in and month out to be able to pay in that way? I think the second question that I would ask is, I see a lot of businesses that are building recurring revenue due to like software affiliates, right? And software like High Level and things like that, where they're coaching somebody to use this software, and then they're getting paid because that person's paying for that software forever, right? And so that's another way to build recurring revenue, where you're not the person that built the thing that they're paying for monthly, but you're the person that's getting credit for it because you somehow shared how to use that tool or system with the audience that you're serving.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like, a friend of ours that used to do a lot of gyms, and he's a well-known guy in the marketing space now. Like, one of the things they added to the gym was supplements, right? So you're going to the gym, you're trying to feel healthy. Well, what other things are tangent to the main thing that you're there for? Even the deli, it's like, okay, well, do they have a subscription box where, they'll send to my home every month or every week, a box of like, steaks, or, we see, was it Butcher Box, right? Is one of the popular online ones you hear about. Like, that's the same idea. So like I actually do need to eat pretty much every day, right? And so could you create a subscription in that regard, right? So, or what are the other things that you could promote or recommend, like AJ saying with the affiliate stuff? Like, even, I know we're hammering on the deli. I think it's a great one because it's a bit challenging, right? It's like, what are the things that people that come to the deli need? And it's like, are there people, they need life insurance, and maybe you have a relationship with a life insurance guy that you refer your customers to the guy who sells life insurance, and you get a recurring, subscription. I don't even know if that's legal, right? A recurring affiliate payment for having directed people in that direction. Like, you have customers that other people want, and you can promote things to your customers that may not be your main line of business, and start building recurring revenue in that regard. So like, that's a easy question, I think, to ask too.
I love everything you guys just said. I regret asking the question, honestly, because now I'm just hungry. I'm thinking about maybe different subscription boxes of meat products I can get.
Well, it is harmonious at lunch, right? So, I guess
it is, right? It's in the name right there. So go to your local deli if you're listening to this at lunchtime. Go support them. Give them all these ideas, and they'll give you a commission for referring them, and make them listen to the show too. But Mike and AJ, you guys rock. This was an amazing episode. Where can the listeners reach out to you and learn more about what you guys got going on?
Awesome. Yeah. If you head over to agencycoach.com/harmonious, we've got linked a couple things for you there. Also happy to always continue the conversation over on Instagram, Mr. Mike Schmidt, Mr. Mike Schmidt, over there. So come say hello.
I love it. AJ, are you on Instagram too, or are we leaving it up to Mike?
Yeah, you can go to Mike's. Mine I use for personal stuff. So if you want to see some DJing stuff, house music DJ stuff, it's Ant1832. But
awesome. We'll put all that down in the show notes below. I love it. Thank you guys for being here. This was a fantastic episode.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
For you watching, listening, go get your lunch, go get a sandwich from local deli. But then before you leave, make sure you subscribe. We want to have you back. Love putting these episodes out 5 days a week to help you build a more harmonious business and life. We'll see you tomorrow on Harmonious at Lunch.